Hi, I'm Maddie, and today I'll be talking about hunting conservation. So one of the main reasons that we have hunting is to maintain our carrying capacity, which can be represented by this diagram here. This is a very typical diagram that you can use to determine if you need to up conservation or if you need to lower your regulations. So the hose here represents annual reproduction, so it's offspring going into the population. And to even out this population, you obviously have some animals dying. And some of the causes can be from weather, habitat destruction, old age, and yes, hunting. We have these setbacks in population to make sure that you don't get an overabundance of specific species, because when you have that, typically your environment will fail or your species will catch diseases. So some of the diseases that white-tailed deer specifically can get are CWD, which is chronic wasting disease. This is transmitted deer to deer, and it can be identified by the specimen being very, very skinny. They typically have neurological disorders. They just won't look right. They typically will starve because their brain will tell them to stop eating, and it's a very disturbing way for them to die. It's uncurable and it's fatal for any animal that gets it. Another disease that white-tailed deer can get is called EHD. It is not transmittable deer to deer. It is actually transmitted from the MIG. It's transmitted from cows to deer through the bite of this insect. It is similar to a flu in humans. It doesn't happen every year, and it comes about in a specific time of year. Any deer that gets this is usually dead within 36 hours because of how fast-moving this parasite is. So it's very, 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 very fatal. So some of the big game in New York State that we are allowed to hunt, one is the white-tailed deer. So here is a picture of a male whitetail or a buck, and then this is a female or a doe. They are very easy to distinguish between because bucks will have antlers, like this guy here. So these are typically used for protection purposes. When it comes time for breeding season, they will use that to defend themselves and to prove who is the better guy. And then in the springtime, or after hunting season is over, they will shed their antlers, and then in the following spring they will go back, typically bigger. And so you can distinguish these pretty easy when it is antler growing season. When they're not, you will never know what is a doe and what is a buck. The other big game species that we have in New York is a black bear. These guys are pretty cool to see out in the woods. They are, a sow is a female bear, a boar is a male bear, and you can usually distinguish them between body structure. So a boar will be a bit squarer in the body. They will have a denser frame, where a female will be a little bit longer in structure, kind of more curvy, if you will, in build. And then to distinguish between a young and a mature bear will have a very triangular face. It'll be equal distance between their ears and their muzzle. As you can see in this picture, it's a very equidistant between their ears and their nose. And then over here you have a younger bear. You can see the isosceles triangle. The distance between their ears and their nose is a lot longer than the distance between their ears. So they're not mature yet, they're younger, they haven't come of age yet. And then the other popular species that we have in New York is our eastern turkey. This is a subspecies of the turkey family, and they're the biggest in the turkey family. So this here is a male turkey called a tom. And over here we have a hen, which is a female. Some main distinguishers for these guys: toms will have a very bright red head. This is kind of their calling card. It's how you distinguish them mostly out in the woods. Another big distinguisher is this beard. Every male has them, and it gets bigger the older they are. So the longer the beard, the older the turkey in your normal sense. Another thing, toms will strut. It's a breeding thing. They puff out. They try to, grab the attention of the females. And then for hunting season, you can only hunt a bearded bird. So if a tom or a jake, which is a young male, those you can take at any time. Some hens will have a beard. They're called bearded hens. Those you can take when it's bearded hunting season for turkeys. So then to keep all this information straight and to have a reference guide, we have this lovely little handy dandy magazine. The DEC sends these out every year. It's for New York hunting and trapping, and it has a lot of very valuable information. So one of the things that we have in New York State is called DMPs, or Deer Management Permits. So they are licenses that are given out to hunters for specific areas. They allow you to have more deer tags. They can be helpful for population control, and they can help the DEC know what the number of critters that were taken for that year. So another thing in here is the 10 commandments for being out in the woods. These are safety precautions that you should always take and be aware of. If you aren't aware of them, you should definitely check them, refresh, and make sure that anybody you take out hunting is aware of them as well, because they can mean the difference between a safe trip and a trip to the hospital in some cases. So another thing that we have in New York State is our junior program. This allows younger hunters to be out in the woods at a younger age to get used to hunting. A recent law that was passed that the state counties were allowed to opt in or out of was to let junior hunters big game hunt 12 and up for regular season. So this is a big deal because it can get kids that may not be able to draw a bow back, lets them get out in the woods. They can be with their parents because it's required that they be out with a guardian. It's it's a lot easier for them to be out in the woods and to get the experience they need. So then farther back in the magazine, you have hunting seasons. This is where you will find out what species you can hunt when, where in the state, bag limits, everything for that. And then back here, we have a list of all the environmental conservation officers in the state. So if you have an emergency in a specific part of the state, you can contact your ECO and they can respond and help you with your situation. This is very, very, very helpful if you are in need of immediate medical attention, or if you just have a question that the magazine does not answer. So then over here, we have a region map. This will tell you, depending on where you are, it'll tell you what region you're in, so that will let you know which DMP you're allowed to buy. This is helpful because it will tell you typically where state land is in your area. If you don't own land, it can tell you where you can go hunt. And then lastly, the very last page is a chart of sunrise and sunset times for the entire year. Hunting seasons, you are allowed to hunt 30 minutes before sunrise and 30 minutes after sunset. So this chart tells you, January 2nd, hypothetically, sunrise is 7:25. So you could be out in the woods by 6:30, you can be hunting at 6:50. It lets you know, what your times are. If you have a question, you don't have service, but you have your magazine, you can go check and make sure that you're doing everything correctly. So I hope that this helps you if you want to pursue your goal of going out and hunting in the woods, or just being an observer and understanding, the way things are run. I hope this helps. And you can always find out more information on the New York Department of Environmental Conservation. Thank you. Any questions?
So can you go over what the bag limits are more for big game?
Yes. So for when you go out and buy tags, you get specific tags for archery season and you get specific tags for your regular season. So for whitetail deer for archery season, you will get a doe tag and you'll get a buck tag. So this allows you to take one of each for that specific season. And then in your regular season, which opens up later in the year, you get to pick either a buck or a doe. So this allows you to take one extra deer if you need more meat in the freezer and you just want to go out and you want to get another doe for the season. This allows you to do that. Or if you've got another big buck on camera that you want to go track down, that allows you to do that. And then for your black bear, you get one black bear tag for the year. A rule with these guys, it has to be a loner. You cannot shoot a bear in a group. This makes sure that cubs have their sow for their full 2 years. So you would be able to shoot a mature boar, a young that mom kicked out a couple years ago, or a sow that maybe didn't have cubs that year. So that allows for population control there. And then for turkeys, you will get 2 spring tags and 1 fall tag. So in the fall, you can get 1 bearded turkey. In the spring, you can get 2. So like I touched on earlier, you can get a Tom or a Jake for males, or you can get a bearded female. With bearded females, it's not like a mutation or anything. It's just something that happens out of the blue. It doesn't inhabit them in any way. It's just a neat feature that they possess. So, thank you.